Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Daniel Seidel, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Daniel Seidel, the co-founder and creative strategist of Inplural, joining us. With a master's in design for social innovation and experience at StrawberryFrog, Daniel co-founded Inplural in Brooklyn, New York, to help brands align strategy with purpose through cultural insight and design thinking. His work has shaped purpose-driven campaigns and earned reputation for its vibrant human-centric approach. We'll explore his founding story, how Inplural is redefining branding, and his vision for scaling this dynamic consultancy. So with that being said, let's dive in. Daniel, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you. Hi, Michelle, and hi, everybody. Pleasure to be in conversation.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have you here. Daniel, to kick things off for our listeners, take us back to the beginning. What specific problem in the branding or strategy landscape, maybe around aligning purpose with culture, inspired you to co-found Inplural?
Yeah, happy to talk about it. I'll offer a little bit of context. My background has been working with businesses, helping them make high-stakes strategic decision making, and coming at that problem with the perspective of a humanist and a designer and a creative. So originally I worked in traditional agencies, like design agencies. I spent a few years there and eventually moved into in-house and corporate, where I was for 6 years, learning how to implement the kinds of solutions that a consultant would offer, right? There's that implementation piece that it's important. And after that, I knew I wanted to do something different, but I didn't really know exactly what that was. So I quit my last corporate job at Capital One. And for 3 years, I was working as a solopreneur, organizing myself with others, working on brand problems, working on design strategy problems for companies around the world. I worked and lived in 4 different continents. And throughout that process, I realized that the professionals that I was most excited about shared something in common that was deeper than the usual, right? Like we were devoted to something that felt really aligned with us that we call purpose. This feeling of doing work that feels aligned with you at your innermost level and in your innermost place. And because I was interested in purpose, a mentor of mine introduced me to the founder of StrawberryFrog. StrawberryFrog is a company that for the last 25 years has made a name for themselves in purpose or purpose-driven marketing and advertising, helping with important causes like gun violence in the US, like bringing more attention to women and finances, women in healthcare, and altogether really doing creativity for good. So I had the opportunity to meet the CEO. His name is Scott Goodson. He's my co-founder. And the conversation that we had was marketing and advertising essentially work on crafting the promise that a brand has to offer to their current and potential consumers.
Yeah.
In such a way that hopefully connects with them. It connects with their values, with their identities, with their perspectives around the world. And we can call that promise, right? What's your promise that you're putting out into the world? And there's a lot of companies that work on that. But let's say that you have the opportunity to craft a promise that is engaging, that is creative, that resonates with people. The question that follows is, what is the proof? What do you have to show as an organization for these promises that you're making? Does the reality meet the aspiration that you're putting out there? And there's a lot of other outputs that come out of that, like how your employees feel within the organization, the kinds of products and services you put out, how you are treating your peers, how leadership is showing up. So we said, hey, let's do another agency that works on powering both the promise as well as the proof. And he said, Daniel, why don't we co-found something together? And I thought that was a really compelling opportunity. And the time came to give this organization a name. And it's called Inplural because it's not in singular. In other words, at the beginning or before I founded this company, I was working as a solopreneur. I was essentially doing my own thing. And especially after the pandemic, there was a lot of us. And with the tech layoffs, you can imagine there's a lot of talent out there that has incredible track record, incredible background. And with the shifts with AI and everything, people are starting to reorganize themselves. So I said, let's do things in community. Let's do things together. And instead of founding an agency in the traditional way, where you maybe sell a few projects, you hire a few full-time people, and then you grow slowly like that, let's go after some wicked problems. Let's work with big clients. And in this 4 years that I traveled and before in my career, I amassed a really diverse network of psychologists, anthropologists, technologists, designers, business strategists, and we work as a community. We work in plural. We work together, bringing a diversity of perspectives, a diversity of disciplines to help companies power their promise and power their proof. So that's the origin for our name and for our company, and it's been a beautiful ride thus far.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Daniel, for just sharing the origins behind Inplural. And while you were speaking, my mind was just thinking, oh, the meaning behind the name. I had an aha moment, purpose, aspiration, but it's beyond that. It's the community that you're building, and it's the opportunities you're bringing back to your network as well. Not just yourself, the specialists and a lot of the talent that is out there, as you mentioned. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts for our listeners and even some potential clients that are tuning in and they want to learn more about how Inplural structures and shapes services for its clients today. Walk us through that. What is your core offer? Is it brand transformation, innovation consulting? How do you structure what you do for your clientele?
Yes, of course. So our primary offering is discovering or unearthing unexpected human truths. Now, there's something to say about this. We're living in the age of AI, and what that has created is that it commoditizes insight. In other words, if you're a company that wants to do something very different and radical and new, and you buy your PricewaterhouseCoopers report, or you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, give me a really creative idea, then who's to say your neighbor's not doing the same? We've landed in a place of flattening of insight. And in order to come up with something that's really resonant, that's new, and that hits people in the heart, which ultimately is our goal, is you need to actually do your homework. You need to go talk to people, the people that are not in the data set. So we use applied anthropology, essentially. My background is in ethnography, the comparative study of culture. And we roll out studies where we actually spend time with people. We get in trusted relationships with the folks that we are intended to serve because we care about them. That's the main differentiator. And it's funny these days that can actually be a differentiator, but we care. We really do care. And spend time with people, pull insights about what is working and not working in their lives. And we build a repository of knowledge that is unique to us. Now, what do you do with that knowledge? You can do a number of things. We can work with StrawberryFrog and build communications campaigns, marketing, advertising on the shoulders of those insights. Or we also have in the StrawberryFrog ecosystem, we have another company with my brother, Jared Bull. He's managing director of a company called Mac One, where we can turn those insights into new products and services, right? So right now we're building an AI product on the basis of some insights that we did using ethnography. So what's coming out of our product development process is actually quite differentiated because its origin state was real hard-earned data, let's call it. Yeah. So in other words, we can do creative, communications, marketing, we can do product and service innovation. And in the middle of that is working with the leaders of the organization to build a more innovative, a more human-centered, a more open culture. In this time of uncertainty, I remember a colleague used the expression, we have to be skillfully unsure.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to build a practice to meet the moment of change, of uncertainty, and of opportunity that's in front of us. So we also help leaders move through that in a very human way, like just relating as people.
Great. Yeah, no, and that's one of the aspects of business development that's overlooked in a lot of ways. I think it's very easy to get into the science behind how you can start to create a perfect leader, those qualities and that culture, but you really dilute it and simplify it to the basics. And that, in an essence, the main goal is like, how do we stay with the evolution of the way the industries are progressing, keeping up with all the technology and all the innovation that is out there so that they are not stagnant, they're not flatlined, as you had mentioned previously as well with the ideas. Now, building on your growth, how are you currently acquiring some of your clients? Which channels, whether it's LinkedIn, you've amassed like a community of creatives, I'm sure, referrals, like what's been the most effective for landing clients for strategy services?
I think that it's a big question mark for everybody. And my view on it is whatever method feels most sincere. I think, if you're a business owner or a budget owner, a large organization, you're getting 10,000 different LinkedIn messages telling you, hey, we are the company that's going to solve all your problems. But who are you going to connect with at a deeper level and what's going to cause that? So our strategy has been so personally on my LinkedIn, I share perspectives and viewpoints around life, around work, around the changes that we're seeing. And in so doing, I'm being vulnerable actually about myself, about my company. And from those shares, we create points of connection. So I have leaders going, oh, wow, thank you for bringing this up. It's not something that is talked about so much. I would love to connect. That's one thing. We also participate of events with like-minded community. I'm a part of a community called the House of Beautiful Business, for instance, whose whole purpose is to figure out between many stakeholders how to make business more beautiful, how to make it more compassionate, how to make it more rooted in the prosperity of all life, the prosperity of our species in these days. It's an important conversation. So participating in community, sharing vulnerably on LinkedIn, things like this. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share our perspective through this podcast. And then really experimenting, like we experiment with different methods. We're putting out a print magazine later this year.
Oh,
In an age of all things digital, I think there are many things that can be communicated by putting out an artifact that, let's say, I see you have a beautiful background. What is something you would feel proud to display in your office, to display in your home? And that says a lot about the company, right? It's all about care, I find. Care in the relationship, care in the connections, and not seeing people as means to a transaction, but as other human beings that are part of a community that's trying to do business differently and business starting from the heart.
yeah. We're on that note, anyways. You're compassionate about helping others get to where they want to be. And you're so right. It is something that is overlooked in business. I think the hustle culture and that glamorization, unfortunately, it is like the highlight of what business should be. And it's almost as if that's pushed down and as the narrative. But it's cool to see, though, that you're really passionate about building people having a human-centric approach and really not thinking, like you said, about that end transaction, but how can I help this person at the end of the day? At the end of the day, servant leadership, how do I serve them in the best possible way? So on that note, I'd love to learn more about your approach to sales, like what strategies have been the most effective in conversion, you meet someone, someone sends you a connection request. What comes after that? How do you start to build the relationship into something long term? Are you leveraging a lot of thought leadership mainly? And are you doing this on your own, or do you have team members as well that are involved in these conversations?
Of course. So you mentioned in your question building relationships. Yeah, that I feel the emphasis is on building relationships, not figuring out how many products I can sell you in the first 45 minutes we are on the phone together, right? But genuinely having an interest in, I think empathy starts when you realize the person who's the buyer on the other side of the phone probably is also nervous about their company and their well-being of their job security, the flourishing of their organization, and they probably want to live happy, fulfilled lives with their loved ones and with themselves. And so we can meet there. And so I try to have a very human conversation at the beginning. I don't do this on my own. Shout out to my team, Jack B. Goodson, Sophia Borletti. Names are names. I wish them well and I thank them every day for the work that we do. We're a small but mighty team. And we also have the association to Strawberry Frog and all of the amazing, creative, tenured people at Strawberry Frog, as well as our partners at Mac One, who are technologists. So in a very Inplural way, we help each other out. We pass each other, like maybe there's an opportunity that comes through my door that feels more like something that Strawberry Frog should be taking, so I pass it on to them. We have a meeting together and vice versa, right? So it's very collaborative and generative. And in terms of projects, I think it's easy to sell or to want to sell the 5-year plan for the amazing transformation. If we don't know each other, similarly, as in any human relationship, maybe you start a little small, maybe you prove value, say, hey, let's do a small project. What is something that is keeping you up at night that we can help you? So for instance, a lot of that times, especially for CMOs, which we talk to a lot, is, damn, I don't really think I understand my customer. Like, I have a lot of reports, there's a lot of data, but if I had a customer in front of me and we're having a coffee, I don't know that I actually would know like how they would feel about my brand, about their preferences. So we're like, hey, we'll do a little study. Let's go find out. The other thing that we do that has worked out really well is we work with filmmakers to do our reports. So in the business world, it's very easy to just create a slide deck. And then you spend all this time talking to people with beautiful, rich life stories, all to get condensed into a bullet point. Is why are we doing this? So what we do is we work with documentary filmmakers, with photographers, and we build rich visual stories about the people that we're studying, that we relate to, and we bring that to business owners. We've done this with some of our clients, and you strike an emotional chord. They feel like they're meeting their customers for the first time in a very deep and intimate way. And generally speaking, if that hits home, then it's okay. We're working off of something really rich here. What can we do with this? Should we investigate how this impacts our products? Should we investigate how this impacts our strategy? What other questions do we have that we can go out and investigate? And so the relationship now flourishes and we can do bigger projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, the storytelling aspect, especially for a lot of brands and like bringing customer sentiments into product development, it's one of the things that's overlooked in a lot of startups and businesses. So I love the fact that that is one of the areas of focuses that you guys have when you initially meet with potential fits. Now, from what it sounds like, you've built a remarkable team and community of experts, innovators outside of just yourself. And there's a lot of momentum underway for this year, I can imagine. For our listeners and some of the entrepreneurs that are still finding like their footing within the branding space and other industries, if you can share like maybe a bottleneck that stands out to you right now within Plural, what would it be? Is it attracting as well like the right types of clientele, scaling the fulfillment, scaling your team, refining some of the processes on the sales side with conversations? What are you focused on most solving to keep all of this momentum going?
Oh my goodness. Tempted to say all of the above because it is starting a business from scratch is challenging. Professional services agencies have changed a lot over the years. I think mainly identifying the clientele that meets us in our value set. I think there's multiple differentiation that we can bring to the table, but at the end of the day, the thing that's going to make us and a client fly and achieve great heights is if we're in it for the same reason. It's easy to undervalue it, but trustworthiness and meeting a professional that's they're sitting at a different seat at the table, right? Like you're the consultant, but they're the buyer. But you both want to do right by your customers. You both want to do right by each other. You want to do right by your employees. And you want to do this in a way that is outside the tradition, right? I can deliver on McKinsey level work, but I'm not McKinsey on purpose, right? And no shade to them. That's their business model. It's a different thing. But we're independent, we're creatives, we're connected to culture. We don't just study culture, we're part of it. We're in it together. And identifying that can be a little bit tricky just off of a LinkedIn profile, for instance.
Yeah.
So it's about stepping into the room where these people might be, participating in community, going to events, putting our word out there, our why out there, and continuing to experiment with different approaches. We've tried cold calling, and I think we've gotten like maybe 2 or 3 meetings out of that, which is fine. Just trying out different things. We're trying the print magazine and not getting too disappointed or too sad if we try something and it doesn't pan out the way we want it. That's okay. That's just being an entrepreneur. We learned, we go back to the drawing board, we move on.
Yeah, no, but it's vulnerable, right? Because these are the ups and woes of almost any founder at this
Mm,
stage. And you're not alone. Some of our listeners right now, they're also in that same position. It's like, how do I find my ICP? How do I actually make sure that's consistent? How do I make sure that we have a system in place that is also going to allow us to does the heavy work in that sense, right? So we can be having the conversations. We're not worrying about where we find the customers or where they're coming from. With everything you've accomplished, shaping brands through cultural insight, what's top of mind for growing Inplural over the next 6 to 12 months?
we want to secure a few, because we've talked about client relationships, and I see those ideally as multi-year, multi-dimensional relationships as opposed to just one-off projects. So we're continuing to look for clients that will want to initiate those kinds of relationship with us. I don't have aspirations to be a 100 client firm. That's a different business model, maybe in the future. I want to be a 10 client firm that has deep and extensive relationships and that has mutual investment in each other's well-being. And so continuing to find that, learning how to say no, learning how and when to say yes, and if we are going to say yes, giving it a full body yes.
Yeah.
This is, I'm committed to this beyond like my professional or transactional interests. Like I'm truly, genuinely invested in this client, in their growth. And I know that they have my back as well. That's the relationships I want to continue to build and find. We've have some that we feel super happy to have and very proud. And we want to just continue to grow in that way. I think exponential growth is a very common in the tech space, very common in the startup space. I'm interested in sustainable, healthy, patient, but active and decisive growth. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that because I think it's very easy for agencies and firms to get caught up in the numbers and the volume, what's coming in through the front end. But then what happens is inversely is the fulfillment is what suffers and the service delivery and then scrambling to figure out
Exactly.
that. And then you're far away from the roots and the core values of what you stood for originally, right? Of
Yeah.
why you do this. And then people coming through the process might not align with what you do. And then it becomes transactional per se.
Yeah.
It's not moving towards that mission together. One last question and then we'll wrap up. What advice would you give to founders that are just starting out, especially those that are diving into creative fields like cultural strategy?
First, a general piece of advice, which is that your best mentor is silence. Sometimes in this like busy world, we have a question floating somewhere in our minds, and so we go and listen to 100 million podcasts, read 3 PDFs, call a friend, and we're just putting impression into our minds when what we really need is to make space and to clear the channel to allow for inspiration and what feels real and honest in our bodies to come through. And silence is the best ally for that. So whether that is just going on a walk to clear your mind, taking a weekend off of your phone, or having a meditation practice, for whatever tradition or modality of that, never underestimate the wisdom of silence. That's one piece. And then the second piece is, specifically as it relates to culture, when you're going to be studying culture, don't remove yourself and pull out a magnifying glass, but jump in the river. Be yourself a part of culture and see what pockets of culture are genuinely exciting to you and get in there. Because if you're going to have to study culture, it's much likely that you're going to get honest responses if people meet you as a like you would meet a traveler that's interested in your culture, and you're like, oh, let me show you around. Oh, you got to come over, have dinner. I'll introduce you to my family. I've traveled a lot around the world, and I know the difference between a traveler and a tourist. Don't be a tourist.
Yeah. Very well said. That was beautiful because I love to travel myself and it's just get in, don't be afraid. You'll be very surprised the way experience will shape your development. And it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a human being, that exposure is absolutely necessary, especially as a young person. That's awesome. Daniel, I love it. I'm so excited to see this runway for you guys in 2025, and we're going to keep following your journey and seeing how it unravels. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Again, thank you so much for sharing your remarkable journey with us today, your roots in design and strategy and co-founding Inplural, everything you're doing with Strawberry Frog as well, with transforming brands with purpose. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses and firms accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.